I am the crazy dog lady. I'm also the crazy cat lady, but I don't have time to talk about both today. I currently have 3 Labradors. In the time I've had them, I've taught them a lot, and they've taught me at least as much. You may have heard that half of dog training is training the dumb end of the leash, and that's absolutely true, but that's not what I mean here. Many of the things my dogs have taught me have carried over into other areas of my life, especially my school and work life, and have been greatly beneficial. Pepper Potts is a silver lab. She's my sidekick that you see behind me. She's my service dog and the first dog I did any training beyond obedience with. Not only is she my lifeline, she's the reason I fell in love with dog training. Gannon is a black lab. He's also trained as a service dog in case Pepper ever calls in sick. But he's naturally a bit too hyperactive to be a service dog every day. I wanted to give him a practical skill, and he will find anything by scent. So we're training for 2 different types of search and rescue. Both Pepper and Gannon have earned titles in 2 different scent sports that I'm incredibly proud of them for. I also have a yellow lab trainee, Zelda, who's training to be a service dog and will be ready to be placed at 2 years old. She's been an interesting one to train. I never thought I'd have to teach a dog not to hit. But she's a fast learner, and I think she'll make an amazing service dog. My dogs have taught me to never stop learning. I firmly believe that when you think you have nothing else to learn in your field, that is the moment that you become bad at it. I work with 4 different dog trainers on a regular basis, some on different elements of dog training, some on overlapping elements. I carefully assess where my weaknesses are. For example, heel. All my dogs are pretty lousy at it, so I have to assume that it's something I'm doing wrong. And I target a portion of my learning towards those things. I take online training classes, I travel for training, competitions, and conferences, and I read just about everything on dog training that I can get my hands on. I want to learn not only how to train different things, but different styles of training so that I can be a more effective trainer. You should never stop learning. There are journals for every field that I can think of, and there's new research being done every day. Make it a habit to seek out information to keep yourself current. Sign up for newsletters, journals, podcasts, YouTube channels, whatever helps you keep up with your field in the way you learn best. Presenting at conferences or writing is also greatly beneficial to add to the body of existing work in your field. In preparing for a presentation or writing, you'll often find that there are interesting things related to your topic that you did not know before. This brings us to the second thing I've learned from my dogs. All individuals have a different style of learning. I learned how to use different styles and methods of training because not all dogs learn the same way, just as not all humans learn the same way. Even with the dogs I have now, they all learn differently. I can use food to train all 3 of them, but it's not necessarily the most effective. Zelda likes a food reward just as much as any other lab does, but giving her a toy is much more rewarding. Pepper is very touch-oriented. For her, touch is almost as rewarding as food, and I use it a lot in her training. Gannon is mostly food motivated, unless he's doing scent work. Then finding whatever he's searching for is the biggest reward for him, although I still pair it with a food reward to mark the activity I want him to do. I am the most effective in dog training if I identify how the dog learns best and use that method in their training. I can also try several different styles of training with the dog to see what's most effective for them. I work in institutional research here at the college. I help provide data and information to a wide range of people with vastly different styles of learning. I could be working with anyone from a student to the president of the college to an external stakeholder, all in the same day. I have to keep in mind who I'm working with and how much knowledge of data analysis they may or may not have. I'm going to explain my data and statistics differently to someone with a master's in math than I would to a student gathering information for a class assignment. Everyone has different areas of knowledge and competencies. It's particularly helpful if I know a bit about the person so that I can tailor how I'm explaining things in a way that will be understanding for them. The presentation methods can be even more diverse when I'm writing for or presenting to a larger audience who may have various levels of understanding in the subject I'm talking about. So in this case, I may explain things in a couple different ways to make sure I get the message across. One person may understand more from a written description of the research numbers and interpretation of what they mean, while another may comprehend more out of looking at a table or graph of the same information. One of the sayings I hear over and over in scent work is, trust your dog. When I started training Pepper for nose work, I was so used to giving her frequent commands in training for her service work that I did the same thing in nose work practice. Check over there, and check over here, how about this one? It got to the point where in one practice, the trainer actually banned me from speaking during my practice runs, except to give Pepper the command to search and to call the alert when I thought she'd found it. You know what happened? She knocked it out of the park. By micromanaging her search, I was making her much less productive. She may have found the scent and was trying to find the source, but I was asking her to check other places and pulling her off that scent. I learned that Pepper search is best if I just put my hands behind my back, follow at a distance, and let her do her thing. It's harder than it sounds, but with her it's very effective. The other element of trust your dog is remembering that a well-trained dog will do what you're telling them to. In scent work, one difficulty with initially training when you know where the hides are located is many handlers will accidentally cue their dog to where the source of the scent is by some sort of change or behavior, whether it's speech or body movement. The problem here is that the dog learns to alert not on the scent, but on the handler's cues. Later, when they're searching and the handler doesn't know where the scent is, the dog is not performing well. Is the dog doing something wrong? No. They're doing exactly what they were trained to do, alert on the handler's cue. But the handler isn't giving a cue. I've learned that when my dog is doing something wrong, I need to look at myself first and see if it's actually me who's doing something wrong. Gannon isn't sitting when I'm telling him to. Maybe I've become inconsistent in enforcing it. Zelda is stealing whole sticks of butter off the kitchen counter and I have to chase her across the house and pry them out of her mouth. Maybe I'm not using a strong enough reward when I'm working on teaching her not to counter-serve. If that butter is a bigger reward to her than what I'm giving her not to counter-serve, she's going to go for what's more rewarding. These same principles apply when working with a team of people. I'll call it trust your team in this case. Unless someone has shown me that they can't be trusted to get work in on time, when I request work from someone, I email the request with a description of what I want, the deadline I'd like it by, and then I leave it. If I haven't heard anything back from the person as the deadline is approaching, I'll contact them a few days before it's due to make sure my email didn't just get lost in the shuffle. Otherwise, I don't bug them about it until the day after it's due if I haven't heard back. This is a strategy I've learned to help keep me from being a control freak. I used to be terrible about it. I had the mindset of if you're not doing it my way, you're doing it wrong. And honestly, it was the dog training that really got me to examine how I'm doing things in the rest of my life and come up with strategies like this to make sure I'm not micromanaging things. In the same way, you need to make sure you make yourself known as someone who can be trusted to get things done. Even when you do receive something back on time or you turn something in on time, there may be instances when what you requested wasn't what you got back. Instead of jumping right to this is wrong and assigning blame, I often use the phrase, I think we had a misunderstanding. It's possible that they did exactly what they thought I was asking for, but the way they understood the request wasn't what I intended. This happened to me fairly recently. A coworker asked me for some work that was part of a larger project, and what I returned to her wasn't what she wanted. It turned out there was a piece of context of the larger project that had I known, I would have understood properly. But because she didn't know I didn't know, she didn't think to mention it, and I didn't think to ask. It made sense to her because the dots connected in her mind. We cleared up the misunderstanding, and I completed the correct work for her. Whether it's with people or animals, always remember that it is a give and take relationship. You can't expect everyone else to be responsible for things going right. Whether it's respect, trust, or doggy love, it is a two-way street. Your employees and coworkers are not going to respect you if you don't give respect in turn, and without giving affection to the dog, they may only be obedient to avoid being punished. It is much more rewarding to receive when you are also giving respect or affection. Dog training and work life may seem like two entirely different worlds at first glance, but the things I've learned from one can easily be applied to the other. Whether it be learning to work with a person or animal in the way they work best, or just relishing in the good moments, the things these dogs have taught me have been invaluable. As you go through life, school and work can get stressful and overwhelming at times. but always make time for your hobbies and the things that you love. You may be learning more from them than you think.